I love the music for this place. It's so creepy. Like, it provides the perfect atmosphere for a place that Vati, like, of course Vati is the one who poisoned the swamp, and it wasn't, like, always that way. I mean, swamps aren't naturally poisonous, they're just, like, areas with water in them. I think I might have used to think swamps were naturally poisonous or something like that, though, because of this game. Ugh, I hate this section. This game is so obsessed with not having walls be clearly marked as bombable. I mean, here you can see a crack, just barely, but even then, a bomb clearly exploded right next to it, and because it wasn't a little bit to the right, it didn't. And also you have to wait for the bomb flower to grow back, like pointlessly mashing the R button in desperation. Like this is just so terribly designed because you don't know where any of the cracked walls are. Like, you have to go inside in order to realize that, oh, it's a puzzle where you have to memorize the level design inside and take that to account so that you can try to figure out where the cracked walls are. But you know, a much less roundabout way would have just been to have the walls have cracks in them. You know, like they've been doing since A Link to the Past for good reason. And what's worse is that when you're in a GBA area, like in a cave, they always consistently have the walls be cracked. But unfortunately, outside they don't like to do that. So it's inconsistently bad game design. And the crack, of course, is to the left of where the actual cave entrance is, and not in the middle of it, because that makes total sense. Like it just feels kind of cheap, like having that be the whole basis of the challenge. Like, when I was in that cave, I couldn't even see this cave from in there, so I had to blindly guess that there was a cave entrance to the northwest of it. This level is all about platforming with the Roc's Feather. Or at least the swamp section of it anyways. I think this is a good time for me to now start talking about how, like, there was originally going to be a 4th level for the world in this game. So, like, there's going to be the swamp and then the graveyard. But what they ended up doing was making it so that, like it was mashed together into one level. Because every single world in this game has an unused 4th level, which is mostly completed, or generally complete. But they decided to merge that 4th level with the 2nd level, so that you could basically have, like, because the 4th level that was unused was originally, it's not like it was going to be past the final level of the world, because that wouldn't really make any sense. It was going to be like a in-between level before the 4th one. And they decided to merge it with the 2nd level of each world. And honestly, that's better because it adds more level design variety rather than having, like, say, the entirety of Kakariko Village just be the village. And it also helps make it, like, make it more... See, the reason I stiffly dropped down there was because the platforming controls are more stiff than you'd expect. I was holding right, but he just fell straight down. Like, that's the problem with this level, is that the platforming controls are stiff. And you have to keep in mind to let go of the control stick so that you can slow yourself down and land properly. Because if you just gun it, then you're gonna fall in the swamp a lot. Like, I'm pretty sure I could have gotten the idea to do that myself, Tingle. And another diggishly placed flying giant force gem. Because it's right over a bottomless pit, and it's flickering between the two values at that. So it's pretty much impossible to consistently get it, like, without basically sacrificing yourself to the swamp. And again, another bad deed for absolutely no reason. What would Vati have to gain in poisoning the swamp? Well, I guess he doesn't want to kill Link. So I guess that's it. The vultures are annoying. Like, they always circle around you and it's hard to hit them. And you have to make sure to keep holding left when you're jumping when you're over the moving lily pads, because you won't just keep going left automatically. Like, that's the thing, like, it has no momentum until you hold down the control stick. But once you start doing that, you just stiffly go ahead, and you can't just go, like, if you're jumping up, like, if you're jumping north, and you can't go left or right during jumping north. And here you have a puzzle where you have to stand on the lily pads that are bounced upwards by the Zora heads. And that'll launch you further than jumping normally. But the problem is that I always have to take a second or two to react once it finally launches me, because there's no like split-second warning that it's about to launch you. So I'm just waiting until it decides to finally launch me, and then, oh, I'm being launched, so I should probably hold right or left. Because if I just hold right or left prematurely, then I'll walk off of the lily pad and fall into my death. And here's a puzzle where you have to jump across the lily pads and then press switches to create more lily pads. And see here, it just barely wasn't enough distance for me to... But like, yeah, like it's pretty unique to have a platforming challenge in a top-down Zelda game. You had that in Minish Cap with the Rock Escape, which controlled better because you could fly and glide with it for a little bit. But like, it's nice to have it here too. But yeah, level 4, like, for some reason they call the worlds in this game levels instead of worlds, which is really stupid and confusing because you're always talking about levels when you talk about the levels of this game. But, so World 4, its 4th level was going to be the graveyard north of the swamp, which was mostly, its level design was mostly just merged with the swamp. So having the merges was good because it made the game less lengthy, I guess. It would have been longer if there were 4 levels. But honestly, I love this game so much that I wouldn't really mind if there were 4 levels in each world. But I guess they thought that would be padding, and they didn't have enough time to fully complete like 4 levels. But most of them were completed. The watery section right, like, World 1's 4th level was the watery section right of the castle. World 2's was the path northeast from the village to the Eastern Temple. And I think I remember that, and it was pretty small, so how could they make a whole level of that? And the World 3's was the final part of the mountain ascent. It was mostly merged with the mountain. World 5 was... I hate this area. I completely forgot what I was supposed to do here. It's so unintuitive. I'll figure it out later. World 5's 4th level was the river running southeast from the village. It's a simplified version of it was merged with the level, and added more variety to it. World 6's level was the lagoon south of the pyramid. World 7's 4th level was the snowy fortress, and was the snowy forest. And World 8, its 4th level was the cloud area in front of the Palace of the Winds. I hate this enemy, because it always has you surrounded with purple bats that damage you from annoying contact damage when you walk into it. So if you try to roll ahead to attack the red bat, but it's harder than it looks because you'll probably just roll into the purple bats. And like the bats don't really let up. It just feels cheap is all. And here's a dark subplot where a girl doesn't realize that she is a ghost and her friends left her behind in a graveyard, so-called friends. But it's never explained how she died though. I can assume it's because a monster killed her, but wouldn't she remember that? How would she not be aware of that? But yeah, like, the annoying thing about the graveyard is there's so many different tombs, and you'll have no way of knowing which tomb is the one that has something under it. And even the ones that don't have something under it, like that don't have a cave under it, are going to have. They're going to. It's not like they're going to have cash in them. But yeah, this is a. It was a surprise challenge having some of the tombs fly at you, and it was a shake up from the flying floor tile challenge normally because you just had one object flying at you. And this level has multiplayer differences too. Basically, the graveyard has many more empty tombs in multiplayer, some with large force gems that actually reward you for pushing the tombs, and others have monsters. The cave with the bow in it is under the 4th headstone in the 2nd row in multiplayer. You'll need a roc's feather and a bow to clear the new caves in the 2nd graveyard. Use the feather to break a set of cracked blocks, then shoot the ice switch, get to the other side, and toss a link onto a platform, then shoot the 2nd switch. And not every... I guess I'll talk about it later. You have to use a shockwave from the downward thrust in order to break a jar, but the problem is that it's not intuitive at all that the shockwave can reach past a block in order to get to a floor switch. Like, I always assumed that I was damaging the enemies that I wasn't directly below because the hitbox of the damage was actually really generous. The shockwave isn't made obvious enough visually, so it doesn't. So by the time I'm forced to use the shockwave to progress, it's not intuitive. So that's easily the worst part of the level, getting stuck wise. But now we're at the graveyard, so it's all about the bow. The traps move so fast, like really fast for traps, that it's better to just do the thwomp thing where you just prematurely set them off and just run ahead when they're busy winding back up. But really, it's just tedious. And speaking of the Roc's Feather from earlier, in the Village of the Blue Maiden in multiplayer, there's only one Roc's Feather, so the player with the Rock Feather has to carry the other players, like over the gap and stuff. And the reason they have to do that is because you need all 4 players to push the barrel. I don't think you ever see a barrel that you have to push with all 4 links. Like, usually it's just a giant block. And like, there isn't enough room to shoot the 2 switches with both links at once, so you have to do it one at a time. It's always kind of funny when all 4 links fall into a hole at once. Even if it is annoying because all of their voice clips play at the same time, so it's noticeably louder. Like, it's bad enough that a voice clip plays with Link screaming every time he falls into a hole. Also, not everyone can use the portal south of Dampy's house in the multiplayer version. The player in the Dark World will have to carry everyone over the swamp water. And obviously this is a good chance for people to dick their players over by throwing them into the swamp water. Again, I don't see why you would do that, because that would just risk your players not wanting to play with you anymore out of frustration. And there's giant boos that you can't really attack at all, so there's no point in having them there. He's called Dampy, but he doesn't have the accent over the E, which is a spelling mistake, because in Link Between Worlds, they have the accent there. Or maybe it's just the French version that I played. I mean, it would make sense to have the E have an accent because you're actually supposed to pronounce it. Seeing those torches, I stayed there because I was reminded of how in 4 Swords, you can actually, all the links can get together and attack the torches with their swords, and that will actually create sparks of friction that will light the torches without needing the candle, without needing the lamp at all. Which was really creative, so it sucks that they don't bring that back in this game. But yeah, what you have to do is carry someone over the swamp water and just like what I did there. It's not intuitive that you can lift up trees. Like, cause you're never able to lift up trees in any other game. And like, it says that you feel so powerful that you can lift up anything, but I'm gonna constantly showcase all the things that you can't lift. So really, it should have just been honest with you and told you what exactly you could lift. Cause it took a second for me to realize, oh right, this tree that doesn't look any different from any of the other trees that you can't lift can be lifted. Like, at least when you lift trees, they normally give you a lot of money when you destroy them. It is really satisfying destroying the trees because it's like a part of the scenery that normally blocks you from going outside the level boundaries, and you can destroy them. The thing is that you can only lift up the trees that are isolated. You can't lift up the trees that will obviously prevent you from going past the level boundaries. I don't know why they couldn't just have invisible walls. But, you know, if that was gonna be how they did it, make it very inconsistent, then what they should have done was have it so that you could only lift dead trees. So, like, there could be dead trees that you can lift, and the other trees surround the rooms, and you can't lift those ones. Like, that would have actually made sense. And this room is annoying at first until you finally get the spotlight on you, but even then, the spotlight is so bright that it hurts my eyes. These guys are annoying. Like, the only way you can damage them is to get the light on. And the thing about this boss is that it's very reminiscent of the boss in the level after this. Because you have the torches thing. At first, it's actually pretty fun, aside from the fact that it dickishly summons ghosts that attack you because you're sitting on the switches and you're sitting duck for the ghosts. But eventually, it just gets it moves so fast that you don't have enough time to switch to the right link and run into him. It's probably a lot better in multiplayer, because then you don't have to deal with link switching and the right link can just react in time. But instead, he's just way too fast for his own good. Well, it is for his own good, but not for yours. But finally, you end up defeating him, which is good, because that was kind of annoying. What is that thing supposed to be? And you can't even attack him, which is really weird because you are able to attack him the next time you face a boss. And like, he's the main thing you're supposed to attack, but here he just runs away. And I can only assume that the way Link progresses from here is by lifting up those trees that you aren't allowed to lift up when you actually get here. So, how does Link progress from here? Well, I guess he teleports. But if he can just get teleported, then why is he bothering? Well, maybe it is because he wants to solve all the different problems that Vati caused. Like, if he just warped to every Crystal Maiden, then he would have never put out the fires in Death Mountain and stuff like that.